In this video, we're going to cover how to input lines or shapes using the mouse. More than likely, the coordinate systems that we went over is going to be rare when you use it. I just showed them to you so you know how it works. But more than likely, the way you're going to input information is going to be by using your mouse. Okay, for example, remember that squares we made, they were 2 by 2, and we use the coordinate systems, different ones, to create that same square. Okay, more than likely the way we're gonna be using this is gonna be inputting distances and inputting or giving direction through the mouse. So let's go ahead and create that same square, but now I'm gonna start using the mouse. This is the way it works. So I'm gonna put line. For the first point, I am going to input the 0, 0 for my origin. But then after that, what I'm going to do, remember that the AutoCAD is asking for the second point. So if I move my mouse in that crosshair, wherever that is going towards, that's going to be the angle or the direction. Okay? Now I'm going to come back to this. I'm just going to turn it on for now. I'm going to turn on ortho. I'm going to come back to that. So this is more than likely how we're going to use it. You start a line, you give it a direction, and then you give it a distance. Okay? So I started my line at 0, 0. Direction, I just moving my mouse towards the right because I want the line to go right. And now all I'm going to do is put 2 as my distance and press enter. Okay? Now I'm going to move my mouse up because I want that to be the direction, and then I'm just going to type in 2 for distance, and then I'm going to move my mouse left, put 2, and move my mouse down and put 2. So we're basically doing the same thing, but now we're using our mouse. We're giving the direction and then the distance, and I'm going to come back to the distance. Just let me show you one more time. Line 0, 0. We give the direction and we type in the distance. Okay. 2. But let's say I'm going to show you something here that you can do with line. Let's say you make a mistake and you press 3 instead of 2. Now that line now is too long. You need it for it to be 2, but by mistake you put 3. You don't have to erase the whole thing. You can do undo right there. Press undo and it's going to take you back to the previous point. So very useful, the undo option we have there. So 2. Now make sure it's pointing to the right direction. If it's moving, it's going to the right, and put 2 is going to do a line to the right side, but I went to the left. So move the mouse to the left, 2. And then here, I'm just going to press C for close. I'm going to type C for close so that it shoots the segment from that point to the point where we started, which was the origin. So I'm going to put just C, enter, and it's going to close that. Okay, so more than likely this is the way we're going to be using AutoCAD, not with the absolute or polar or relative. More than likely it's going to be just by giving direction and typing in the distance. Now that we're talking about the distance, I want you to think of units of measurement. Okay? Right now we just put 2, 2, 2, and 2. The question is, to what? Is it 2 millimeters? Is it 2 inches? Is it 2 feet? Is it 2... what is it? AutoCAD has different options for that. By default, we're in the decimal. Okay, by default, we're in the decimal. So it's moving 2 decimal places to the right, 2 and 2 and 2. Now these are units of measurement. There's difference. It's like if I tell you, can you measure your room? You can use a ruler, you can use a measuring tape, you can measure it in inches, you can measure it in feet, you can measure it in yard, you can measure it in millimeters. If you don't have nothing to measure with, you can even measure it with a book. You can tell me my room is 25 books long, and the book itself becomes a unit of measurement. You can say, well, my room is 3 tables long. The table itself becomes a unit of measurement. So it's gonna give us the distance in regards to the unit of measurement that we are using. Now here on the status bar, we have a section here. These are the units, okay? If you press that flyout button, we can do an architectural, decimal, engineering, fractional, and scientific. By default, it's decimal, okay? You can also change them by typing units, and this opens, and by default, it's to decimal, okay? Now, I wanna show you something. I'm gonna change it to architectural. You can change it here, or you could just change it right here. If it's on decimal, just click here and put it to architectural. Now, when you do architectural, now we're working with feet and inches. Okay, feet and inches. So it's a difference if we want the line to be 2 feet or if we want the line to be 2 inches. It's a huge difference. All right. So AutoCAD, we need to specify that. Just FYI. If you're in the architecture units, whatever number you type, it's gonna see it as inches. If you don't specify, okay, whatever number you type in is gonna see it as inches. For example, let's do this again. I'm gonna do a line, 0, 0. If I just put 2 this way, just like that, enter, it's gonna be 2 inches. 2 inches, 2 inches, and then close. Now, but let's say you don't want for it to be 2 inches, you want for it to be 2 feet. So when you do feet, you have to specify, okay? So 0, 0. If I want for this line to be 2 feet, I have to put 2 and then put that right there, the apostrophe. When AutoCAD sees the apostrophe next to a number, it knows that it is feet. Enter, notice now that that's 2 feet. If I go up 2 feet, you have to specify. If not, it's gonna see it as inches. 2 feet, and then bring it down. Okay, so whenever you do architecture units, you have to specify, especially 1 inches and feet, you have to specify that. Again, whatever number you put in there, it's gonna see it as inches. So for example, I'm gonna do now a line that is 2 feet 6 inches. So we do a line, and I want the line to be 2, and then I have to specify feet, and then 6. If I leave it like that, remember any number that it's plain, you'll see it as inches. But just for learning purposes, you put the quotations, and that means in AutoCAD inches. So whenever you have apostrophe, it's going to be feet, quotations, or just any number with anything or with nothing, it's going to see it as inches. So that line now, it's 2 feet and 6 inches. 2 feet, 6 inches. You have to type in the feet. Now again, I'm not gonna put the inches now. I'm just gonna put 2 feet 6. It is gonna work because any number you put in there automatically sees it as inches. You see? Okay. So just keep that in mind. You need to specify when you're in the architecture units. If you want inches, any number will be inches, but if you want feet, you have to specify. Okay. Now, notice that also in AutoCAD, this is our crosshair. Now, this crosshair is what how we have access to the software. So this crosshair changes, okay? Changes whenever we select a command. Okay, so it changes from crosshair to pick box. For example, let's say I need to erase this square that I made. I'm going to press on erase, for example. Notice now my crosshair no longer is there, but now I see a little square. That is called the pick box. So now I can pick, let's say I want to erase that line, I can pick it and erase it. Okay. Once the command ends, you can see the cursor going back to crosshair. Okay, so I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm gonna grab the erase tool. Notice that it changes to the big box, and I can select what I don't want, and I can delete. It's not just with erase, it's with different commands, but we're gonna learn them as we go. So I just wanted to see that in case you see me erasing stuff and you see how it changes. It's going from the crosshair. When you select a command, it changes to a big box. So you can pick certain things. All right. Now, last thing I'm going to cover in this video is going to be the command boxes we have here. This is a command line. We have discussed this in the first videos. Always keep an eye here. Now, AutoCAD gives us a nice version to look at the information, not necessarily at the command line, but there's something that is called dynamic input. And then this one right here that I told you about from the other video. This is called dynamic input. If you don't see it in your status bar, just come here and activate it, dynamic input. What that is, imagine that you have this command line box at your disposal right next to the cursor or to the crosshair. So I'm going to activate it. I'm going to press it and I'm going to do a line. So now, well, let me deactivate it. I'm going to do a line. Okay. And I can do just something like this. Now I'm going to do a line again. Now I'm going to activate it, do a line. Now notice, now look at the crosshair. Remember what it says here at the bottom, specify first point? Now on the actual crosshair, you also see it there, specify first point. So with dynamic input, what it's doing is grabbing this that is here, the command line, and putting it right next to the cursor. So that's very helpful because it's going to be prompting you and you can put in the information right then and there. So you don't have to come down here and look at it. You can do it right here, right next to the crosshair. So again, that's with dynamic input. So everything you're doing, notice there on distance, it gives us the angle that we have there. You can see the angle and you can see on that box with that blue highlight, it's giving us the distance. So you can type in the distance right then and there. 2 feet, 6 inches. See? You can see the angle and you can see the distance. That's when you have dynamic input on. So very helpful to do that. Have dynamic input on so you can see, instead of keeping your eye on the command line, you can see it right there, right next to you. So it's giving you a lot of information right on the drawing that you're doing. Okay, so that's dynamic input. Is very helpful. My advice is you keep it on because it's gonna be prompting you as you go to put the information that you need. Okay, so that's again dynamic input. If it's off, you don't see it. See? If it's on, you do see it. It's going to be prompting you for the information. Even the angle. See that line is going, it gives you the angle. Okay? So very useful. My advice is always to keep it on, and that way you don't have to be moving your eyes back and forth. Okay? Dynamic input. So we discussed in this video about the different units of measurement, how to change your units, and if you're using architectural, you have to specify if you want feet by using the apostrophe. Okay. We also discussed the crosshair and the pick box, and how you can close a line, and also how to use the undo or redo command.